Who do you think has the tightest end in the NFL?
Dan Campbell?
Yeah, could see that.
Or actually, I guess he would be the one to ask. He would definitely know.
Because he taps him so much?
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely seems like an ass smacker.
Guess what? I got a fever.
You give me fever, fever in the morning, a fever all through the night.
Folks, welcome to episode 79 of the Dynasty Fever podcast, the Marvin Powell episode. 9 seasons as a tackle in the late 70s and early 80s with the Jets, sort of like that's my era-ish, like 77 to 85. I was born in 78, so when I was growing up with the Ken O'Brien and Freeman McNeil Jets, he was part of that. Like the last few years of his career were part of the first few years of me watching the Jets. 9 seasons and all pro during 5 of them. And I guess starting with our next episode, we'll be in the 80s. And so we'll start talking about some wide receivers and stuff like that. I'm Brian Ford with my co-host, Jesse Schneeman. Jesse, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Here to rock and roll with some tight ends. I really got nothing. I just got back from Florida. I survived Florida, so that's nice.
You got some color. Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. I pink. I get a really good pinking the first day, and then it gradually turns into tan. I'm good.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah. So margaritas and the beach and an '80s concert that was a lot of fun.
Little good times. Goo.
Yeah. No. Well, actually, it was Howard Jones, but he had Kajagoogoo's bass player, so they did Kajagoogoo song. And you know, and this was a complete surprise. This is my wife and her best friend in cahoots. We had a good time anyway. But Culture Club, Boy George, played a T-Rex song as an encore. You remember Bang a Gong?
Yeah.
Yeah, Power Station did it as well. But that and Sympathy for the Devil. It was a really different version. I've never heard it before. And then he did a little dub style reggae. It's definitely a different show than I expected out of Culture Club.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of that stuff back then, there's kind of like the glam, the synth, and then also like a lot of like the ska and reggae that like also crossed over with what some of the punks and new waves were into. Is kind of all was kind of going on there in Britain in the 80s, and it was a big old soup of fun.
Yeah,
but I guess that's for another day, I suppose. Today we're talking about tight ends. We've done an episode on running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, and now rounding it out with tight ends. Just as I guess training camps are opening, right? The Chiefs were the first one. I think the Ravens might be next or something like that. I don't know. I just all of a sudden I'm starting to see more tweets about reports from camp and that sort of thing. So we're kind of doing our last positional overview before we move into a few other things. But before we start out, been some news lately. A lot of the running back solidarity being pissed at a few things, and Pollard signed the tag, Mixon reworked his deal, but actual signings, D-Hop and Ingram. So Hopkins to the Titans. I think it brings in that classic question of, is this going to be a situation where the offense improves and a rising tide lifts all boats, and D-Hop draws attention away from, whatever? Or is it going to be D-Hop's the target hog and a low volume offense? So, it's a serious ding for Burks and Chig. I think I'm somewhere in between. How are you feeling about D-Hop to the Titans?
It's I guess it's pretty much the best possible type of receiver for Tannehill. So if you're looking at it from a Titans point of view, it's a really good signing for them. I think it makes them a better team. from a fantasy football standpoint. I didn't lower Hopkins. I kept him exactly where I had him in 2021. I don't see any like dynamicism in the offense, but he still looked good last year. I thought, he was still getting open, still making great catches. So AJ Brown produced a pretty good couple seasons with them. I expect him to be able to do the same, maybe 1,000 yards, and touchdowns are random. So who knows, but anywhere from 5 to 10 probably.
Yeah. I think it's generally good for Tannehill. I bumped him up, I think, a spot or two because, I think it really means that they're leaning into like whatever window they have left with Henry and Tannehill as far as age and contract and things like that. And so I think they're going to be slower to pull the trigger on yanking Tannehill and putting in Levis. So I can have a little more confidence in that. And then, of course, obviously having a better receiver there, helps him produce more. I only lowered Burks like one spot. I think I lowered Chig maybe 1 or 2 spots, something like that. I think it is going to ding them because of the low volume, but I think, because my rankings are a mix of a lot of factors in their dynasty, and it's not just like a 2023 ranking, not too concerned overall about the long term of Chig and Burks with D Hop in town, even if he plays the second year. So
yeah. As far as Burks goes, yeah, I did. I lowered him like 10 spots. I have him in the 40s.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm really not a big fan. Really not. So any chances of him becoming an alpha, just to me, just went out the window, and I thought those chances were low anyway. So I think I had him somewhere as a C as far as like as a breakout this year. I'd have to go back and lower that to like a D grade. Like I think there's just a low percent chance that he's a wide receiver 2 this year. I think that's a 2-year deal with D Hop. I don't know if there's an out in it next year or not. So maybe it allows him to develop behind D Hop, and it's a little bit of a longer term play. I really have to see it out of him though. I have to see more out of him to not ding him for that.
Yeah. What I saw last year, he was injured a bit, and he flashed. He was good when he was in there. When he was in there, he got good target share. When he was in there, he also was playing with, quarterbacks besides Tannehill, like Dobbs and Malik Willis. We have to remember that. And to an extent, he was kind of learning how to be like a real outside receiver in the NFL, because in Arkansas, I don't want to say that they used him like gadgety, but he was more versatile, lined up in different places, lined up off the line of scrimmage, things like that a lot. And so he was almost learning a new position while learning being in the NFL, while dealing with, some bad quarterbacks and that sort of thing. And there were definitely some things, the guys at Fantasy Astronauts or FF Astronauts. Have you ever seen Jetpack Galileo, that Twitter account? Anyway,
I've heard of it.
Yeah, he was doing some film review on Burks and pointing out some things where, like, here's some things he did well, and here's some things he can improve on. I think overall he took a step, and developed a little bit as a rookie. So I think I'm a little more optimistic about him. Maybe not being a wide receiver 2 in 2023, but certainly, reaching into that potential that I think he has. But we talked about Burks and Watson last time too. Like you're very skeptical about their ability to hit their ceiling. I'm less skeptical.
Well, I'm very comfortable with the tier that I have him in as far as potential value going forward. I have him 41. I have Sutton at 39, Zay Flowers at 40, Burks, Mike Evans, Juju, Lockett. I feel comfortable that I would like trade him for one of those players. Is that way too low?
I mean, it's pretty below market. Like,
yeah,
if you did that and didn't get a plus, I don't know that I think you would be leaving a lot of
I guess
meat on the bone, to borrow a non-vegan phrase.
All right, so 37 and 38 are Pickens and Addison. So maybe I just have maybe I have those guys too low as well. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, they're too low, too high. It's all relative. Like
Yeah.
like we were saying last time, I think of Pickens very differently than I think of Burks and Watson, but I think maybe some other people have them in the same neighborhood. Like I've got Pickens at 40, right? But I've still got Burks up at 23.
Yeah, gotcha. As far as Chig goes, I actually didn't lower him because of who's around him. Really, I don't see it as necessarily bad news for him either.
Yeah.
You know, he's going to have a limited share to begin with. I don't know that it gives him a smaller share. It may just make it a bigger pie. You know, and he has the same
from 13 to 14, something like that. Not a big change that I made.
I have him at 18, and I'm comfortable there. Above guys like McBride, Otten, the rookies. You know, behind guys that I think have a better chance. Irv Smith, Komet, Juwan Johnson.
Okay. So I guess we might as well start talking about our tight ends then.
Yeah, let's do it.
And I think we can maybe put a pin in that conversation because I think we have a lot of those guys in a different order, I think. But do you want to start there? Or do you want to start at the top?
Let's start at the top. Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, I think the big three is the big three out there in the streets. There's like a few schools of thought. There's Travis Kelce is dynasty tight end 1 until until his arm falls off. There's Mark Andrews is tight end 1 because he's younger than Kelce, but more proven than Pitts. And then there's the increased offensive output with the new offensive coordinator. And then there's Pitts' number 1, still 21 years old or whatever, unicorn, super athletic, like great peripherals, and metrics and things like that, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So what say you about who's 1? And then sort of where do you arrange the other 2 guys after that?
Well, I just flipped them today and put Kelce 1 and Pitts 2, but that was for a specific reason. But also I would trade either one for the other in the right situation. So if I'm rebuilding, I absolutely would trade Kelce for Pitts straight up. And if I was contending and I had Pitts, if I thought I had a chance to win it all, I would absolutely trade Pitts for Kelce straight up. So, we're doing a startup league that you're running. And in that draft, I was looking at potentially, I guess this is just part of doing what we do, right? I'm going to give away possibly some of my strategy. I don't know if it'll get to me in this draft or not by the time this podcast comes out, but I'm looking at the beginning of the second round. I have the 10th pick. It could be to the point where all the quarterbacks I like are gone. I have to make a decision between a few players, right? And Kelce's one of them, and Pitts is not, right? And I looked at my list and I was like, well, I have Pitts over Kelce, but I would take Kelce at the top of the second round. I don't want to take Pitts and tell myself, well, I'm just taking value and I don't know if I'm going to compete and when I can just take Kelce and know that I have a chance to compete, and in that situation, I would have to, work on quarterback later. And it's the third round reversal. So maybe I get something there. I don't know. What I do know is that I had to change my rankings because of it. That's who I was taking to start up.
There's an argument to be made that taking Kelce is the value thing because of the way that Pitts has been dinged out in the streets. I mean, there are people who are like off Pitts, like base more or less calling him a bust already. You know what I mean?
Which is crazy.
And like the dream is over and yada, yada, yada. And, I briefly mentioned last time when we were talking about him in London on our wide receiver episode, that if he scores a couple more touchdowns in that 1,000-yard season rookie year, we're probably thinking of him quite differently. And, obviously if he didn't miss some games last year, we're thinking of him, I think, very differently. So he's my 1.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let me ask you this about about Pitts. If he balls this year, right, 70, 80 catches, 1,000 or more yards, 8 touchdowns or more, where does he move up in the startup? Is he a top 10 startup player next year?
I think that'd be hard, because I think in the super flex economy that you and I are in, besides the top 8-ish quarterbacks, if they're roughly the same number of them, people are still gonna, pick Chase and Jefferson in there somewhere. Someone's gonna want Bijan in there somewhere. It's tough. I think he would move to tight end 1, absent some beast of a year by Andrews, who is my 2, and then Kelsey's in a tier of his own at 3, because Kelsey's in a tier of his own because he's older than those other guys above him, and I think the age difference is big enough where I'm gonna make him 3, but he's in a tier of his own because obviously the production positional separation from the guys that come then after is big. So I've got Pitts and Andrews in tier 1, and then Kelsey is his own tier in tier 2.
So what's Pitts's ADP in a startup now?
Yeah. You read my mind. I was going to move there. So Pitts is 306 and Andrews is 308. Kelsey's riding at 212.
So the value is Pitts, right? Where they're going, because he has the best chance to gain value in the next year.
I would say so, yeah.
The other 2 guys are at the peak of their value, right?
I think Andrews could still hit a little bit more, hit a little more ceiling, a little more peak value, because
he did have a bit of a down year.
I mean, that 2021 year, he beasted, and that was like the one year in like Greg Roman's reign of terror that they were near league average in like pass rate over expectation or whatever. So, there's a very good chance that if they do what they're going to say, right, be more dynamic, run Lamar less, pass him more, that even with, throwing some targets to Zay Flowers and Bateman and OBJ and Likely, that Andrews has like another like beast year. And I think he could probably increase his value a little bit. I don't know about like increases ADP all that much. You know what I mean? But in the trade streets, yeah.
Pitts could get himself up to a solid 2nd round pick.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
Easily, at the beginning of the 2nd round, actually, I could see him going somewhere there. So, I mean, I think there's a very low chance that, unless it's an injury season, where all of this is unless injury, a very low chance that he loses value this year. I just think there's such a good chance for him to gain.
So we also have the same next 3 guys, maybe not the order, but we have the same 3 guys. So for me, it's Hawk, Goddard, and Kittle, and that's a tier. So I think a question that folks have is, how big is that tier 2, and who's in it? Like, are you entertaining you moved your rankings. I'm sorry. So like, are you entertaining, and you can answer this question, putting like a Moose or a Kincaid up there with those guys, or is it just those 3?
Yeah, I moved Kincaid up to 5 right after Hawk.
Mm-hmm. And what was your thinking in there?
It's just I fully believe in him in that offense, right? That they're going to use him as a wide receiver, and it's really versus the players below him. So Kittle is old and always hurt, and I just really want no parts of him. I'm just done with the Kittle experiment. It's very difficult to time his actual, 6 to 8 hot games out with the fantasy playoffs. I think it worked out last year, but it doesn't usually. So I'm just very difficult for me to like invest a high pick in Kittle. Goddard, I like, I really like Goddard. He's just sort of at the end of the tier because he's never really put up the stud numbers that we want him to, and he's got a lot of target competition. So there are going to be games where he completely disappears. So I think Kincaid has a chance to just be the number 2 target in Buffalo this year right away. And if not, just over the course of his career, he's going to be more valuable than any of these other tight ends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was actually a little surprised, because you have tended to be, as I have over the years. Although I think I've maybe changed a bit, but let me see it first with the rookies. Kind of slow to drag the rookies up the rankings, other than like Bijan at RB1 or whatever. When we've had
I'm starting to get there.
Yeah, like so for me, I have Kincaid at the top of that next tier, and it's like I could totally see within like a couple months, just boom, I shoot him up. But for now, it's like he's 7 because we'll see. People who know a lot about Buffalo and things like that are saying, listen, Dawson Knox isn't going anywhere. Like he's going to be like on the field almost every play. And then Kincaid, especially early on, might be, competing with Deontay Hardy and, Trent Sherfield and Khalil Shakir for snaps. You know what I mean? So like, I just want to see a little bit more of it, because when you have that many weapons, like Josh Allen does, like, I don't know how concentrated the targets are going to be into 2 or 3 guys.
I understand wanting to see it. When you say weapons, though, I say more. I wouldn't call the guys they have weapons. I just call them, a lot of the guys they have are just bodies. We'll see what people are excited about. Khalil Shakir. Yeah, I said that right. But we'll see on him. Gabe Davis, I think we've all seen that he's kind of a one-trick pony.
So let me ask you this question. Couple questions that are on my mind when I think about tight ends. Are you a get one of those first 3 or wait till way later? Or do you say, nah, even if I miss out on those first 3, I'll grab a Goddard, I'll grab a Kincaid, I'll grab Muth, a Dulcich as my tight end 1. Are they worth their price?
Yeah, absolutely. It just depends on where I am in the draft and where I am with I don't know what their ADPs are. So that's kind of a tough question for me to answer. Yeah. But yeah, in theory, I'm in on Goddard, Dulcich, Muth, Ingram, and Njoku are a little kind of end of that tier, and maybe a little Waller if I'm like desperate and I'm like, if I really wait, if I'm like really screw it, then Waller's kind of the end of it.
Okay. So then let's talk about ADP, because I'm going to make the case against TJ Hawkinson. Not that I'm like, obviously he's my tight end 4. I like him, whatever, right? The case for him, I think we all know, the targets went way up when he went to Minnesota. High octane offense. They're going to have to try to score a lot. The defense sucks. Target hog, et cetera, et cetera. Tight end premium, is built for guys that get targets like that. That's the case, right?
Yeah.
And age wise, a good couple of years younger than Goddard and Kittle, right? Is he worth the 408 when Goddard's the 608? Kittle's the 512 and Kincaid's the 705 is the question, right? And the case against that is, I wish I had the numbers at the tip of my brain, but even with the increase in targets, the increase in fantasy production, like on a per game basis, was not a huge difference in Minnesota versus his years in Detroit. On top of that, they did draft Jordan Addison. At least the coaches and people who follow the Vikings say that KJ Osborne is not an unimportant part of this offense. There may be more passing volume, even more passing volume now with the loss of Dalvin Cook. However, I don't know that that's that big a deal. I think, whatever Dalvin Cook targets, they're going to go to Madison and Chandler and shit anyway. So I don't know that that's that big a deal. I like Hawk. I don't know that I like the price, especially the price relative to the next few guys behind him.
So what I need to know is who's going around him in the 408.
Sure.
That's what makes all the difference.
Right. So starting at the 404, let's say, is Eckler, your boy Etienne, your boy Walker, DK Metcalf, and then Hawk. And then the few picks after him, Josh Jacobs, your boy Vanilla Vic, Devontae Adams, and Najee Harris. So it's like, are you grabbing that like low end, like elite-ish running back, or that like low end wide receiver one, or are you grabbing TJ Hawkins?
Yeah, I kind of like Hawk better than most of those guys. But then it's all right, well, what's available around Goddard, and then what's available, like we did last week with would you rather have this and this or this and this? It's tough to say, but just listening to that, I'd rather have DK, I think. But otherwise, I think I'd rather have Hawk than most of those guys, even the running backs. I mean, granted that, given that it's at least a decent 0.5 tight end premium. But if it's a 2 tight end league, I don't think he's even lasting that long. If it's a higher premium, 0.75 premium, he may. And in that case, I'm probably snapping him up.
Yeah, just so the listeners know, the ADP that I'm quoting is this. I put on the settings that the premium is between 0.5 and 1 and 1.0. There's no setting for like making it a 2 tight end league. So adjust accordingly, I guess,
Yeah, 2 tight end leagues, they tend to just really go very early. They get very inflated.
You're higher on Ingram than I am. He just signed a contract with the Jags on 3 years, something like that, whatever. Guaranteed is $24 million or something. But
yeah, it seems like he's there for a good 2 years.
I like him on that team. I did bump him up a little bit because Doug Peterson likes to use tight ends, ascending offense tied to Trevor, not old yet, but you have him at, I think, 7, right? And I've got him at 13. And I just worry with
9. I have him at 9.
Okay. I just worry with Kirk and Ridley and the running backs and Zay Jones and the fact that 48%, I think, of Ingram's points last year came in 3 or 4 spike weeks towards the end of the season. So maybe that means as the season developed, they learned how they want to use him, and that's a sign of things to come, or he's riding 3 or 4 spike weeks and I'm a little less into it. I'm not really sure. What do you think?
Well, yeah, no, I think the first argument you were spot on. Dougie uses tight ends. He's kind of coming into his own. The only issues I have are that it's still Evan Ingram. So there are issues that could pop up with drops. And man, I hate to use injury crutch because there are a ton of guys in the NFL that are injured a lot and play full seasons. It's just very difficult to predict that. So I don't want to bring that into it. But the drops and the sort of general boneheadedness that he showed with the Giants could sort of pop back up. I think he's a good bet that he just sort of matured and found an offense that he understands and clicks with him. And they franchised him and then committed all that money to him. I don't think that it's a bad organization. So I think it's, what I mean? I think they've shown that they've been making good, shrewd, sharp moves. I'm with him. If you look at who's behind him, he has just much less going against him, right? So Freiermuth has the quarterback issue and then also the offense issue with Canada. Njoku is, well, I guess you can make the same arguments for Njoku with Ingram, but Njoku got hurt in the middle of trying to break out last year. So it's still really tough to trust him. And then after that, like who? Dalton Schultz, Waller. Do you have them over Ingram?
Yeah, I've got let's see here. Just I got so my 7, 8, 9 is Kincaid, Muth, and Waller. That's a tier. And then I have a big tier of this is where I start to get into the do I want these guys at their price? I like some of these guys, especially at the top of the tier. But like if I haven't gotten a tight end by now, do I just punt? Like, so and that's that's Njoku, Dulcich, McBride, Ingram, Chig, Laporta, Mayer, and Schultz, 10 through 17.
So yeah, I guess I have it tiered differently.
Yeah.
So
that's why we have these conversations. What
right.
What do things look like for you?
I would say Kelsey Pitts, Mandrews is a tier, and Hawk is sort of a tier of his own. I guess Hawk and Kincaid together because they're sort of a younger tier. Kittle, Goddard, Dulcich, and then Ingram, Muth, and Njoku and Waller. Mm-hmm. And then that's up to 12 for me. And then that's a clear line of demarcation. Like after that, these are all tight end twos.
And what are the next few guys like 13 and stuff?
Schultz, Juwan Johnson, Komet, Irv Smith, Chig.
I thought you hated Irv.
I did until his price became like a bargain, right? And he went to the Bengals where they're going to actually use him, and it's a bet, it's a gamble, but it's such a cheap gamble. That's why I like him so much. You saw what happened with Hayden Hurst there. And I think Irv is probably a better talent. Well, Hayden Hurst was a really good talent. He was drafted by like over Mandrews, right? Mm-hmm. So I think Irv Smith is like a really nice bet to be like a post-type sleeper for somebody that you can get for, well, maybe not anymore, but you can get him for a third, at most places this offseason.
That's interesting because I think I'm coming at it from a different perspective in that he joined the Bengals, which is, a nice spot to be, but he was already in a good offense. We didn't see much from him, and then the tight end doesn't get used much in the Bengals offense. I mean, they don't have to, right? Unless there's injuries. Like, I mean,
Hayden Hurst had a really nice year.
He had an okay year. He had an okay.
Good.
Year.
I mean, I have Irv 16th. I'm not like betting that he's going to be a tight end one.
What I'm saying is that like I think Irv's value is being inflated now because of the arrival at the Bengals above, I think, where it should be. I have him at 37.
Oof. I don't even have 37 guys ranked.
I guess maybe I need to rethink that.
Yeah. So I have him in my, he's kind of, well, I guess Komet at 15 starts my who the fuck, what the fuck tier. And that's Komet, Irv Smith, Chig, McBride, Otten, all of the rookies. And then that's it. Like after the rookies, it's like, who the fuck cares about Higbee and Hurst and likely Dawson Knox and Taysom Hill?
Well, I do. The right
I don't.
guys.
That's what I named that tier. I'm not saying that nobody should care about them. I just don't.
Yeah. Okay, so
I bet you their mothers care about them.
I thought I liked Juwan Johnson at 21. Sell me on 14 with Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau there.
Yeah, the Foster Moreau thing does hurt. I get it. Taysom Hill, he put up numbers with Taysom Hill there last year.